My parents, they were worried because I'm a newborn. I'm their only child, so they were panicking. They were like, okay, let's just keep this calm. Let's just start prayers. Let's just start reciting Quranic recitation. So they were doing anything in their power to try to get this entity out of the house, but nothing was working, and it kept persisting until the wee hours of the morning, and I was starting to heat up.
I really don't feel good. I'm getting a
Is there anyone here? What did you find?
You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.
The story began as early as childbirth, since I was born. This is a story that was relayed to me by my mother. And I was born in Malaysia actually, but I was brought back to Singapore, and upon news that I was home from Malaysia, family members, they would come to visit, and one of my uncle and his family, which is inclusive of his wife and his 3 children, came to visit us at Maghrib. At Maghrib time, it was raining that day. At this time, I was about a few weeks old. And upon their arrival, my mom told me my three older cousins, rushed into my bedroom to look at me. The moment they came into my room to see me, that's when I started crying. So my mom told me, it's normal for a baby to cry, especially if their sleep has been disrupted or if they're feeling uncomfortable. But the thing is, I wasn't crying for like a good 30 minutes. My mom told me I cried from 8 p.m. all the way till 6 a.m. in the morning. I was crying. My parents and my grandparents at the time who were living with me, they thought, oh, maybe it was because I was in an uncomfortable environment. Maybe because my diapers were full, I was hungry, or maybe I was sick. They were trying to exhaust all kinds of um needs I might need, as a baby at the time, but they found out nothing was helping. So I think after a few hours of me, since I first started crying, assuming about 3 to 4 hours after realizing nothing is working at all, that's when they noticed that perhaps it might not really be all, the baby needs, but maybe something must have followed the family here and is disrupting my sleep, or is this disrupting this baby. My parents, they were worried because I'm a newborn. I'm their only child, so they were panicking. They were like, okay, let's just keep this calm. Let's just start prayers. Let's just start reciting Quranic recitation. So they were doing anything in their power to try to get this entity out of the house, but nothing was working, and it kept persisting until the wee hours of the morning, and I was starting to heat up. My mom told me my body, because I was born with an extremely milky white complexion. That's what my mom told me. But at the time, she was so surprised that my skin turned very red, like I was heating up. It was so painful to look at. That's what my mom told me. So she even started crying. She thought she broke her own baby. I think after, like, into the wee hours of the night, 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, up until it was reaching Subuh, Fajar, the prayer time, that's when my mom recalled, oh wait, there's an ointment that one of my great grandmothers have given me. This is to soothe any baby or to protect any baby from whatever entities that are bothering me. And that ointment has been recited, multiple Quranic verses to protect, to veil the baby from whatever that that is disturbing them. So my mom went into looking for that ointment through her belongings. She was desperate at the time, and upon finding it, I think my grandparents helped aided with the recitation, and as they rub it over me, that's when, exactly after the azan subuh and after the ointment has been rubbed around me, that's when I stopped crying immediately. This story, I've recalled about it quite recently, because it struck to me just recently that this doesn't make any sense. And maybe there's a scientific explanation to it, or maybe There's another reason behind it, but I thought it would be nice to talk about it because after hearing some of your stories from Supernatural Confession, a lot of it lines up. And maybe, um, yeah, so this event occurred twice in my life. First in 2007 and the next in 2010. So just a bit of insight about me. I've an extremely vivid memory from as a kid. Even my dreams are vivid. So there are times where I feel like, am I really seeing this or is this just a dream from past? So all these events that occurred in my life, all that has tremendous effect on me, would have I could recall it even up to this day. So sometimes it's hard to believe for others because they're like, how can you remember everything in detail when in actuality it's just normal for me to do so. So this happened when I was 5 years old. I recall that there was a huge family gathering in Hougang, like where my grandparents lived. So my cousins, my uncles, everyone came to visit. So the house was completely full. So me and my 15 cousins, or I think more than that, we big family, Malay. So yeah, I mean they're all of all ranges lah. The older ones are probably in secondary school. The younger ones are still babies. So we Malay, we like to lepak, right? So all the cousins all go to the stairwell to like lepak there to play and all that. So that was where I was playing with my younger cousin. So I call him M. So M is only a year younger than me, but the thing about M is that he's born with to be intellectually slow. So even though he's 4 at the time, he was way behind other kids in terms of speech or emotions and all that. While I was playing with M, I decided to leave the in between area to go to the third story because I wanted to play with the older cousins, to play charades with them. At the time, they were playing charades. And it was about 5 to 10 minutes into charades. I recalled it was about that timing as we were already playing a couple of sessions of charades when suddenly one of my older cousins from level 2 came up looking for me. They were like, Afika, did you push M? I saw you pushing M earlier, like just now, like moments ago. And I was so confused. Like, what do you mean I pushed M? I was still 5, so I know nothing about like what is going on around me and what is happening. I just know that I was playing charades like just now. But they told me that M fell down and they saw him fall down because I pushed him like just now. In the end, I was like, I took the blame because I was a kid. It's nothing to do. M was crying. He got hurt. I'll accept the blame lah. But this was the first occurrence. So the second occurrence happened when I was 8 years old, and this time, this was when I look back into the story, I realized that it makes more sense now. At the age of 8, there was this another family event. We stayed overnight, and we played hide and seek at the void deck. I was hiding with one of my cousins. We were hiding behind a pillar. I was like rushing for time because the my one of my cousins was about to finish a countdown, right? As I was hiding behind a pillar with my other cousins, like less than 5 minutes later, one of my cousins came looking for me. And she was like, where's Afika again? And I thought like, oh, maybe, they're trying to trick me, trying to get me out of my hiding spot so they could find me. But turns out this was serious. So I was like, okay, we just stopped the game. Everybody stopped the game. And they were like, I saw you punch M. Why did you punch M? And I was like, I don't even know where M was, at the time. I was hiding with another cousin. And my cousin knew that I was with him because he literally said, no, Afika was with me all this time, like, what do you mean I punched M? M was already crying at the time. He was very hurt by what happened. And my aunts and uncles, they were all like consoling him. And my mom was like literally giving me an earful. And I don't even know what the hell was happening. I had to admit that I punched him even though I didn't punch him. at the time when I look at it at face value, I thought, oh, maybe M has conspired something against me. Maybe he hates me. That's why he was trying to frame me for something I didn't do. But as I look back at it again and I think about it again, things just doesn't match up. Again, M is special. He's never one step ahead of me. He's always few steps behind most of us because he's born to be intellectually slow. And not to say that he's not smart, he is very smart, but he would never like suddenly go up to cousin A, punch me so that I could make her look bad or something, you know. Number two, the fact that there's a witness, an eyewitness to actually see that I actually punched him or pushed him, it means that there's a figure, that there's a solid person that actually pushed him, you know? And that person was not me because I was with my other cousins and my other cousins saw that I was with them, so there's really no possibility I could be at two places at once. So when I think about it again, now that I'm older, I'm like, if it's not me, then who is it? At the age of 13, I remember vividly it was the 31st of October. It was Halloween. And it was 2015 that year. I was watching BTS live stream for Halloween. Guilty. But because there were like lots of people joining into the live stream was like buffering. So I recall I was on my phone, like on my couch. Where the couch was positioned, it's directly facing a mirror. So I was waiting on my phone for the stream to play. But while waiting, I heard the door to my house open and my dad enters. I say this because I could literally see him from the corner of my eyes. He enters and he always has this habit of when he comes home, he would call me by like in this voice, Fika, Fika, that way. And every day I would respond to him because he's my father. I want to acknowledge that he's home. But that day I felt like I didn't want to respond him for some reason. I say this because I literally in my head I felt guilty for not responding him. But I was too focused on like waiting for the show to run that I was like, no, I'm ignoring everything around me. I heard the door open and he walks into the living room. I saw him from the corner of my eyes in his purple uniform. And from the mirror, I saw him like in the mirror checking himself out. And then, he still goes on with the Fika, Fika, expecting my response, but I wasn't even responding because I was like, no, no, I want to watch BTS. So afterwards, he left and he went to the toilet in the master bedroom. And 15 minutes after that, the door knocked and my mom opened. And she, cheerfully invited my dad back into the house. Like, oh, you're back. And from after that, I was like, wait, what? I didn't say anything at first. So my dad rushed straight to the toilet because he was urgent. So only after he went into the toilet, I recall looking because from the mirror of my living room, I could see the master's bedroom toilet if the door is open. So I was like, I was looking into the mirror. I was looking at the master's bedroom toilet, and I was like thinking, didn't my dad just enter the master's bedroom toilet? But my dad this time he didn't enter the master bedroom toilet. He entered the toilet in the kitchen when he was urgent lah. So I was like confused. So after he went into the toilet, he settled down. I went up to my mother. I was like, Mom, didn't like dad just came home like earlier? He went to the master's toilet bedroom, whatever, right? Then she was like, no, your dad just come home. He just ran into the toilet. What are you talking about? Then I was like, what do you mean? I saw the gate open. I mean, I heard the gate open. I saw him pass me by, calling me Fika, Fika, all that. And I even saw him in the mirror. Like, what do you mean? Don't be ridiculous. Like, don't scare me like that. Then I was like, oh, okay. I didn't want to prod any further because I know that this one must be kachao, kachao. But then after a while, the door started knocking again. Oh, and This time my mother didn't hear it, but I saw it because when my door is very flimsy lah, my house door, it was knocking like dung dung dung, and it was knocking very loud. I'm so surprised my mother didn't hear it from the kitchen, but maybe because she blending something like that's why she couldn't hear. But it was knocking so loud to the point that I could see the door move when it was knocking. So I was like calling her because at this time I really like takut a bit lah, like oh no, I saw like two dads. What if this third one is my real dad? So I was like, alamak, don't want to go and open. So I was like calling my mom, like, Ma, door, like it's knocking. Door, right? So she went on the door, and then when she checked the door, no one there. She didn't open. She looked through like the peephole, but there was literally no one there. But the door was literally knocking like aggressively, like dum 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 dum. There must be someone outside. There's weight to it, and that it surprisingly was like Halloween that year. So I would say like the story is like I kena trick, not treat. I think I was 16 at the time, 16 or 17. Oh, I was 17. So I was going home from madrasah when while I was heading home, I was in the elevator, and the elevator, like the moment you pass by like the separation from two levels, right? There's like always like this, you can see your reflection through the uh window. So I was wearing, my uniform was yellow, and I was carrying like this side bag lah. But from behind I saw like something white when there was literally no one there. So I was a bit like, okay, maybe like reflection, the light reflecting, all this, okay, fine. But as I continued walking, because from the lift to my house is a long corridor, so while I was walking, I passed by the windows. I felt very uneasy. Like, I never felt this way before. But I felt like macam from my peripheral vision, I'm seeing something. And when I arrived home, I took a step in. But the moment I took a step in, I rasa, or like I feel like part of me was trying to control me, another part of me was macam not controlling me. Like, I think one of the confessions said like, puppeteer, right? It's like something is controlling you. So I was conscious of that. When my mom passed me water, I did something that I never thought I would do. I spat the water out, like rudely in front of her. Be rude. That's what my mind was telling me. Be rude. So I was like getting this feeling of agitation. I'm not feeling myself today. That day we also went to visit my grandmother at the hospital. So when I came to visit, everybody was already like surrounding my grandmother. And we were having like a meeting. I'm not a meeting, like a family gathering in the hospital. The moment I arrived, the moment I stepped inside, like stepped into the ward, my grandmother did this. Get away from me. Get away from me. Everybody in my family, my uncles, my aunties, they were like confused, like what is going on, what is happening. The moment I stand near to her, that's when she does this. She acted like that lah. So everybody around her was confused because like before I arrived, she was okay. But the weird thing was that when I arrived, that's when she started. It was the same day. It was the same day when I kena the thing. So she was swatting her hands away. So I was like, we leave it to the uncles, the her own children to baca the recitation, right? I was at the corner of the hospital ward. I was really right next to the window. When I was next to the window, there was like this mosquito net to prevent mosquito from entering or leaving, whatever. As the recitation got stronger and stronger, I slowly backed away lah. But suddenly, bang! The mosquito net fall on me. And that's when my grandmother stopped. Like very chill. Like she just calmed down already. So when I got home, when I was heading home, my parents wanted to grab food lah, but I was already holding a tantrum. I was like, I don't want to eat. I was feeling very agitated that night. I remember my parents were trying to get me out of the van. I was conscious, but another part of me didn't want me to get out of the van. So I was like I recall I was scratching on the van. I will never do that. But that day I was conscious. I was scratching, started vandalizing the glove compartment of my dad because that's where I was at. But part of me knew that, okay, you go to madrasah, you know that this is not normal. So the one thing I do is like I didn't want to listen to Yasin. Like part of me didn't want to listen to the Surah Yasin, but part of me was like, yo, you have to do it, or else something bad will happen. So I push myself lah, dengar Yasin on the way home. That was when after I dengar Surah Yasin on the way home, that's when like everything calmed down. And I solat, I go to sleep. The next morning, everything is fresh, nothing kacau me. So honestly, I told this story and there's a lot of like mixed views lah. Some people say, oh, because you're tired, maybe because you're very tired that day. Yeah, that's why you behave that way. This is scientifically proven, and I agree to that. But I also know that I saw what I saw. I feel what I feel. So it's not me. It's confirmed there's something that was, if not possessing me, it was controlling me. And this helped me in the next story. I was praying at 1 a.m. in the morning. After I was praying, I wanted to go to sleep. As I was about to fold my sejata, I already folded all my other items. But when I wanted to turn around and fold my prayer mat, one of my stuffed toy magically appeared at the place where you rest your head to bow. And it wasn't scary lah. I mean, it's just a stuffed toy, right? But it was looking at me. And how could that toy from this corner of my room magically appear from this end of my room? The way I'm facing while praying is at the corner of my closet. So there's literally no way anyone could like pass by to put anything there. And I'm the only child. So it's my mom, my dad, and my aunt. There was no like someone playful in the house to actually uh do anything lah to me like that. But then the second time it happened when I'm praying Fajr. So after I prayed, again, I did the same thing. I folded this, I folded that. As I was about to fold the prayer mat, that stuffed toy was literally in front of me. Like the face was directly looking at me. So it was really creepy. And good thing my parents were awake at the time. So I was like running out of my room. I was like, this happened again, this happened again. And then my mom scolded me, lah, see lah, who asked you to buy all these stuffed toys? Yeah, kena scolding. But then afterwards, my parents would always, if anything happens, scary happens in my room, they would always put this like radio and they would play Quranic verses to help me. So this was just a side story that happened before this story. So I was heading home one day with my parents and we were eating at this ulu part of Masling. Opposite of that restaurant is like this, it wasn't an abandoned warehouse, it's just an old warehouse that people still work in. But because it's like 8, 9-ish, it's quite dark. And at Masling, at that part of Masling, if it's once after like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock ish, there will always be this sound like ding dong, all this scary sound that echoes through the night. So after we eat, my mom was paying and my dad was waiting outside of the restaurant. Where when I was looking at him, he's literally in front of the warehouse, the abandoned warehouse. I was with my mother and I was waiting for her to like finish paying all this lah. But then when I looked over at my dad, literally the 1 meter away from my dad, I saw a floating head. It was looking at me. It wasn't clear. It wasn't vivid. It wasn't like the things that you see in a horror film, like extremely vivid horror head. It was very faded. You could tell that even though it's faded, there's like something there lah. It has a Cheshire smile and sunken eyes. I know how it looks like. So I try to ignore it because I don't want it to know that I actually looked at it. So I was like, okay, never mind. I'll just ignore it because I don't want to acknowledge it. When we were heading home, that's when my family dah pecah. Like my dad feeling moody, very moody, doesn't want to talk to any of us. My mom, because I recall my mom saying something to me. Then when I responded in the most harsh manner ever that literally broke my mom's spirit. It gets worse because I knew my dad and my mom is already like angry, pissed, upset. I also cannot affected by all of this. So when I went to the toilet, I started crying. And it's in a Muslim in Islam, we were not supposed to cry in the toilet, but I cried in the toilet. I remember I was harming myself in the toilet. I wasn't like harming as I was cutting myself, but I was doing something that wasn't me. I was punching the wall, I was punching the sink, I was basically slamming my body in every wall that I could. That's not something you would do when you cry. When you cry, you just cry. But this one, I was literally harming myself. Part of me didn't want to harm myself, but another part of me was like um harming me. So I immediately took actions. I was like, okay, I knew that whatever I'm doing now is not me that's doing it, but it's something else that's doing it. So I reacted calmly. I was like, okay, stop hitting yourself. Take wudu, take ablution, and go pray. That's what my instincts told me. So I was like, okay, I did what my instincts told me and immediately did my prayer, and everything was calm afterwards. So after that day, my mom like texted me lah, like the day after, she told me like, your dad really was upset yesterday. Our family was, we were literally broken lah. Like yesterday, it was the first time she has ever seen this happen. She told me. So after she told me that, I literally went back and told her, Ma, yesterday I saw a floating head. Then she was like, okay, read as many du'as as you can, she doesn't know what to do when it comes to this lah. So she panicked. She was like, okay, read as many as dua you can. Later when I go home, I'll put the radio inside your room for you. So this is at Republic Polytechnic. I think one of your confessor was also from Republic Polytechnic, yeah?
You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.